So Bill Rabello, Bill is a San Diego native that has worked in technology most of his adult life. Early on, he realized he needed real estate in his portfolio to ensure a comfortable retirement. He started investing in single-family homes using creative deal structures. After the sale of a 4-unit property, he partnered with a group of experienced self-storage operators on a 439-unit deal in Twin Falls, Idaho. He has since left his W-2 job and is now running his own business, investing in, owning, and operating self-storage facilities. Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Rabello.
Hello, everybody. It's nice to be here. Thank you, Marie, for having me. So, I'm here to talk to you about building wealth through investing in self-storage, or why grandma's junk might just be your gold mine. So, who am I and why am I here? I'm a San Diego native, and I was born and raised in Ocean Beach. Back when I was young, it was just a hippie and biker town, but like everywhere else in San Diego, it's gentrified. And even though it's got a lot more people in it now, it still has kept its quirky vibe. My father was also a native in San Diego, but my mother came out from South Dakota in the 40s with my grandfather and the family, and they settled here in San Diego. I'm sure it must have been pretty much of a culture shock. My grandfather started building homes around town, and unfortunately, he passed away when I was very young. But hearing the stories about him really sparked my interest in real estate from a young age. I really began learning property management from about as soon as I was able to hold a paintbrush in my hand. Plus all the fun stories that come along with having residential tenants. And yes, I did have hair at one time. So I always thought that I would get into real estate as a young man, but somehow I ended up in technology. Now, technology is a pretty nomadic industry, meaning we change jobs to jobs quite often. Typically, it's about, every 2 to 5 years we find ourselves in another job. And so I found myself dragging along this trail of old 401ks, and I came to the realization that if I was going to have a retirement, I really needed to set this up myself. But what to do? Well, how can I do? What's going to get me to that next level where I might actually have a comfortable retirement and not have to work the rest of my life? And the same thing went with a lot of my coworkers. They were kind of in the same position, and a lot of us talked about real estate, and some of them had interest in doing it. Some of them just had interest in knowing that they had to be a part of it, but didn't necessarily want to work in it themselves. So real estate really became what I decided to work on. So I joined RIAs. I read voraciously and spent money on gurus. I'm sure everybody's been there. And eventually, I took action. Started buying properties in San Diego with creative strategies such as subject to, lease options, owner financing. And then I was doing that all alongside my W-2 job. Now, my grandfather, the last thing he built before he passed away was a fourplex in East San Diego. And about a year and a half ago, we decided to sell it. And that pretty much brings me to why I'm here and my presentation to you guys. So I was going to do a 1031 exchange, and like you heard in my introduction, I ended up being a minority partner on a self-storage deal in Twin Falls, Idaho. So let me get a show of hands here. Has anybody here ever used self-storage? Okay. And has anybody known anyone that's used self-storage? Okay. Well, that's kind of my point. So self-storage units are fueling a $45 billion industry, and a lot of investors are sleeping on it. So self-storage isn't sexy like a tall skyscraper or a cozy like an Airbnb in the country. But you know what's not sexy is the money that sits behind money sitting behind in bank accounts and old 401ks. I looked this up yesterday just to see what the average across the United States was for savings accounts. And the interest rate on savings accounts at regular banks is 0.38%. That's 0.038. And if you really want to be generous here, if you add in credit unions and more higher interest bank offerings, it's actually a whopping 0.57%. So you'll never even beat inflation just by keeping your money there. So why self-storage? It's recession resistant. It thrives in booms and boosts. When times are well, people are buying. When people are not doing so well, they're downsizing. Either way, they need they have the need for storage. It's the only commercial asset class that's held steady during the 2008 recession. Low costs and high returns. There's low overhead. The expenses of a self-storage facility once stabilized is 30 to 40%. Getting a unit rent ready typically only requires a broom, and it's about the same dollar per square foot across the country as multifamily. The other thing is you can add units if you have the space for additional units or RV parking and boat with relatively low cost. My favorite part, no squatters and no eviction court. When somebody doesn't pay their bill, you can typically lock out their gate code within 1 to 3 days, depending on the state you're in. And then they have to come in and pay you to gain access. If they're unable to, you can sell their stuff on an auction, typically within 3 months, again, depending upon the state. That way you're able to recover your losses. So why now? The self-storage development cycle has hit the bottom of its cycle. And the reason being is mostly due to the uncertainty in the market and cost of goods, tariffs. So banks are afraid to loan on it. Banks are loaning on acquisitions, though. The next 5 to 8 years could be a huge boom in the self-storage acquisitions. When interest rates will fall, we're going to see home sales go up. Once they increase, we're going to have more movement across the country, and there's just going to be more need for storage. There will be a supply of shortage, and rates could skyrocket because of that. And by the time banks start looking at lending on development again, it's going to take another 2 to 3 years before those assets can open. So we really have a good window of buying now and really appreciating. Also, with interest rates low, there are some other advantages, like the ability to work out owner financing with sellers, because they're able to get a much higher price. And operators are able to get favorable rates and non-recourse loans. It's really a win-win for both. And our goal is to buy as many properties during these next 5 to 8 years as possible. So here is our acquisition philosophy. We do extensive market research. It's really the foundation that a good deal is built upon, because I don't expect a market to make us. We're not buying hoping for that market to make us, but in the wrong market, it could break even a good deal. So we only buy in markets that are appreciating and have multiple industries, employment industries. We target underperforming value-add facilities. These are mom and pop run facilities that a lot of times it's either their second business or they've owned them for years. They don't have a note on them anymore. And so they like to talk about how they're 100% occupied, and they don't like to raise rents because they don't want people to move out, and it's just a cash cow for them at that point. But we can buy those at a discount because you're buying them based on the income that they're making. So there really are some great deals out there. And the mom and pop owners are still 60% of the self-storage market, so there is a lot of opportunity. Because of my background in tech, what we would like to do is come in and modernize and upgrade these facilities with better websites, software. And what's really neat is the websites nowadays, if you're really getting into the latest and greatest tech out there, somebody's able to come up to your facility, scan a barcode, and then within 5 clicks, they can have a gate code in their email and come in, pull this stuff in their unit, and drive off. The fastest you can get your customers, the faster that you're getting them to rent your facility. Otherwise, if they have got to wait and call and hope somebody answers, they're going to move on. Also, upgrading security is big. We found that the woman of the house typically makes the self-storage buying decision. And so by really making the place feel safe, you're going to get more business that way. Plus, you don't want crime at your facilities anyway. All right. We also implement proven strategies, such as requiring auto pay, which has been found to really extend the life of a tenant. Requiring tenant insurance is a great one. With tenant insurance, the operators actually can keep up to 80% of the monthly premium, and every dollar that's added to your bottom line is a multiple to the value of the facility. Bringing the facility up to market rent, that same example I gave earlier. So if in that 3 to 5 mile area, which is your only competition, like facilities, if the 10 by 10s are going for 100, but your facility is going for 75, one of the first things we do is we just come in and we raise the rents, because people typically are not going to move all their stuff out of a facility to another one to pay the same amount of money. And while you will lose some people that are there just for the value of it, those are empty units now you can occupy with new tenants. There's also added ancillary income you can do, like if you do have somebody on site as opposed to a remote site, you can sell supplies. Billboards and cell towers are great options to lease those out, but you really need to know how to negotiate with those people. And then lowering expenses, that goes without saying. So this is going to probably sound silly to say and sound really basic, but our 3-pillar philosophy is letting them know that we're here, answering the phone, and making people pay their bills. Like I say, it seems simple, but in a lot of the markets that we're targeting, this is the one thing that can really boost us to the top of that whole market. All right, and this is our buy and hold playbook. Once we've implemented the strategies on the last slide, we've raised the income and lowered the expenses. That increase to the net operating income is actually a multiple to the value. So we're able to typically raise the value very quickly. Usually at the 3 to 5 year mark, we refinance. And we're able to return most or all of the initial investment to our partners and investors. And that money is tax-free because it's a loan. We then hold long-term for cash flow until we're able to do another refinance event. Guys that I've worked with have actually done 3 different refinances over the years on properties they've held. In some cases where it makes sense, or where we get an offer that we just can't refuse, we'll sell and do a 1031 exchange like our sponsors were talking about earlier today, which allows us to get into a bigger facility and defer the tax gains. This all equates to above average returns, incredible tax savings, and long-term cash flow. There's the bad and then the good. Bad is we usually don't do distributions for at least the first year until we've stabilized the property and done any CapEx improvements that need to be done. The good news, though, is that we do what's called a cost segregation study. This identifies parts of the property that allow us to depreciate them faster. And the Big Beautiful Bill just brought back 100% depreciation, which is huge for tax savings. And we do this on the first year. So even though we're not doing any distributions, that tax benefit will come to you in that same year that you do your purchase. This can make a huge dent in your tax burden. And if you're expecting a big tax bill for 2025, you really should look into buying some type of commercial property. That said, I'm not a lawyer or a tax man, so you should talk to your tax professional. All right, so to wrap things up, and I hope you'll bear with me on another one of my comic slides here. Grandma's old furniture might not be worth much, but the building and land it's on is. And going back to the beginning of Grandma's junk being your gold mine, that's what I'm trying to show here. So this is a stable business that provides cash flow, massive tax advantages, an appreciating asset, and it's backed by real estate. Here's what I'll leave you with. If you have interest in doing this type of work, let's talk. I'd be happy to give you pointers, and I'm always looking to partner up with like-minded people. If you see the benefits to this and want to explore it further, but maybe don't have the time or interest of doing it yourself, you can also take a look at my website. You can get in touch, set up a 15-minute call. I'll be happy to answer any questions, let you know what's going on, and put you on a little drip campaign where once we do come across some opportunities, we'll be happy to pass those along. So here's my QR code, and if you scan it, this will actually take you to a free download of an investor's playbook to just give you more information about it and how it works. And then on that website, you can also find a link to set up a time to talk. All right? Thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it.